Underdog Fantasy keeps on dropping new contests, and we are all over them. Tonight's the Superflex Puppy. We'll talk about how I finished inside the top 10 in a Superflex contest last year, how to attack this one, as well as checking in our current exposures for myself and Tyler. This is the Fantasy Sanctuary Underdog Best Ball show. Let's get into it. Yes, we've got the Underdog Puppy but Superflex to jump into, and we're going to dive into a draft very, very quickly tonight. But first, Tyler, before we got going, you're not the biggest fan of this contest. Any particular reason why?
I just don't find it as fun, and it's ironic because everybody said that about the marathon. It's like, oh, it's boring, it's not fun. I did a bunch of these last year. I did fine and well when you adjust for slight differences on Underdog on the format. But it's just not as fun. Just like slam all the quarterbacks. It's not as fun of a puzzle to me as I think others do. But I will say it's fun because I think there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. So if you look at it like a puzzle, yeah, definitely a lot more ways to be viable than other contests. But not my cup of tea. I like getting in a rhythm, but chaos is fun. So
Yeah, it definitely throws a few different ways to do things. And I think the biggest thing, as we'll find out, no doubt, when we get into a draft, is that it's the run on quarterbacks dictates everything. And room to room, Superflex drafts can be so varied compared to normal single quarterback drafts. It's so yeah, I think it's something which I enjoy doing, and I like to get into the Superflex streets each year. But I've done most of my Superflex drafting on FFPC, so I'm kind of excited to see how thirsty for quarterbacks this room is. Have you jumped into any of these yet, Tyler?
yeah, I had to do a few, even though I hate it. You got to jump in and chase some money and see what's going on. And usually, like the first day of these contests, ADP is kind of stale and fake. So you got to play around with how far can I push it? What's it look like when I go early? So I've tried to play around with all types of things. Not sure what I'm liking most thus far. Um, but yeah, it's been fun because every room's been wildly different.
Sweet. Well, let's not be around the bush about it. Let's just jump in and we can talk as we go.
Yeah, let's give the
And there
people what
is
they want. A nice flex, just got to get in the flex.
after a weekend of drinking beer and eating crap, I will refrain from flexing this week. But if you're here and jumped in the draft wars, do let us know and hit that like and subscribe button. We're flirting very close with 100 likes on a few videos now, and Tyler has promised to do something special when we get there. We've got loads of content coming your way in the next week. Got DraftKings drafts on Tuesday and Wednesday. We've got more Dynasty content coming from Rich very soon. And of course, we'll be always here on Mondays. A few familiar faces in the chat tonight.
Welcome everybody.
So looking at ADP, Tyler, how many quarterbacks are going in the first round currently by ADP?
By ADP, we're looking at what? Five. ADP says 5. I usually see anywhere from 6 to 7 recently. This is probably adjusting pretty quickly. Seems to be that the more badges that are in a room, the more likely it is the quarterback run will start heavy and early and fast. Because I recall last year on Underdog in these Superflex tournaments, by maybe like day 2 or 3, probably too many quarterbacks going in the first 2 rounds. You were talking like the Kirk Cousins tier was gone by early to mid second round, and you'd see the fourth tier of quarterback kind of get flirted with in the third round, and that was easy to go. Nah, it's too rich for my blood. But yeah, these early drafts, I took AR in the top 6 in one of my first drafts, and then in my second draft, I decided to just push it and see what happened, and he came back around at like 16, 17. So, it's fun to flirt until you push it too far because you're not sure where they're going to take it. And I will say Ben Gretsch hopped on today to give us a little bit of alpha, saying that he's kind of just going to, early on, he's just going to kind of punish the room for, not taking enough quarterback scarcity and just build it like he builds it. It was interesting, though, because the example he showed was a 5 quarterback build with Josh Allen. So you were saying you had a really top finish. So I'd be curious to see. I'm very amiable in these contests, so I'm curious to see how you would prefer to attack them.
Yeah, so for me, the key to Superflex in general is it's all about waiting on quarterback after your first one. I think that getting one of the top quarterbacks early and doing that right is absolutely worth it, even if it feels occasionally like you've missed that tier. I want one quarterback within the first 2 rounds pretty much always. And then the second quarterback kind of take what the room gives me, but the third quarterback, that's kind of really I don't want to touch a third quarterback until the double digit rounds. And
Mhm.
I'm happy to go up to 4 QBs in 20-round best ball. FFPC data, which is kind of a little bit different because it's tight end premium, of course. Are we on
Do
the
you have
clock?
a lean Josh Allen Hurts?
I'd go Josh Allen, but I mean, do we get the 101 here?
We got the blessed with the 101, this influencer stuff. You know what?
I mean,
And I gotta say, I think last year and everything you said, I kind of agree with. I like the room kind of dictating how I can attack it to maximize. And at that point, I kind of like having the 101 in these Superflex because you really get to dictate how the turns go. And by the second turn, you're getting a pretty good feel of how the pockets are gonna kind of space out. So yeah, first
yeah.
share of Josh Allen.
So I think whereas, in a lot of drafts that I've done this year and we've done together, I've lent towards more extreme strategies and particularly zero RB as we have 7 straight quarterbacks go off the board. But I think in Superflex, there's situations where you don't really want to be left behind at any position. It's about trying to craft that balance. So the team I had that did really well last year on FFPC came 8th out of like 11,000 teams. That was one where I started Lamar, Bijan, then I had Dak Prescott and then a wide receiver. So Dak was a little bit I didn't really want a second quarterback there, but the room was giving me value on him and he felt massively undervalued in the third. I doubt we see him slipping that far these days. But it was then okay, now that I've been hit with I haven't got a wide receiver through 3 rounds, I still want to hit 4 wide receivers minimum by the time we get to round 10. So as long as you're kind of cognizant of the stuff that's working in multiple formats, not just Superflex, I think there's definitely ways that we can make it work. Team out of the 11, probably hoping Jamar Chase made it back around that corner to pair with Joe Burrow. But I mean, how much do you like building like the team in the 12 spot and just doubling down on wide receivers and really going, you know what, I'm going to have huge amounts of upside here?
I played it a lot like that last year. So one thing I want to note for some folks, I don't know if you've played these contests on Underdog before, but this is the one and only contest I believe of this size that is only start 2 wide receivers. So it's 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, not 3 anymore, 1 tight end, 1 flex, 1 superflex, and then your bench. So you want to be cognizant of where you're loading up on wide receiver because it's not as valuable in some of those other spots. But the way I attacked it last year was trying to go after the guys with like 30-point ceilings. Um, so if I was gonna start 3 or 4 wide receivers, they were gonna be guys that I was counting on to like be filling in the flex and the super flex spot in lieu of those quarterbacks and hopefully building through the later round guys. So in these super flex tournaments, I was really heavy on mid to late quarterback builds I just ended up getting a lot of the back, back corner slots of 9 through 12. So a lot of like Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Stafford, and Mac Jones builds with the sprinkling of the occasional Arizona or San Francisco backup. Looking back, I regret taking backups late, and you just go for the swings of those backup running backs because when they do pop off, it's going to be with a pretty massive, like 80% running back one workload. So cognizant of building those types of guys. So the CMC Brees is similar build there of going after running backs with 30, 40 point ceilings that if you hit everything right, they may be able to really outpace quarterbacks. So it's really just profiles of guys at every
Yeah.
being cognizant of like who's there and what are they capable of.
So this is a QB hungry room. Some teams really trying to force the issue here, but it leaves us some really fun players at wide receiver and running back. I wouldn't be against just double tapping wide receiver here if you fancy it, going like Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, or Drake London, whichever two
Yeah,
of those
I
three you
love it.
fancy, and seeing what we can make work from there.
Yeah, I love it.
Because the elite level those guys are capable of is absolutely worth chasing. See, we've got Fantasy Football Garage in the chat with us tonight. Shout out to him. Good to see him back in the streaming streets. Go and check out his channel after we're finished here if you haven't already. In terms of this draft room, yeah, it really feels like not getting swept up in runs can sometimes be really beneficial, but it's always that balancing act of going, okay, I can't ignore it too much. I've been in Superflex drafts where people really try to force that, and then before you know it, you've working with a quarterback room of people like Jacoby Brissett who are going to start a few games maybe, and it just becomes
Right.
pretty ugly. But I think with Josh Allen, maybe we'll see what comes back around, but we will probably be living in that Drake May. We'll be living in the sort of like JJ McCarthy world and seeing what happens.
Yeah, maybe.
Anything else? Anything else standing out to you, Tyler, in this draft so far?
You know, it's going to be interesting looking at, because the other thing too about these is you want to stack, you want to correlate, but it gets kind of difficult to balance that at times. It's like, do I stack and correlate, or do I positionally allocate well? I think one thing to be cognizant of is just how you're building those things out. And I think Konami codes are going to be even more valuable in these spots because of just the floor and ceiling they provide you with. Interesting to see, a team starting two quarterback, running back. I think anchor running back is pretty viable here as well, because anchor zero allows you that flexibility to kind of ebb and flow with the room. So I'll be interested to see kind of how this turn attacks it. I expect a double tap from the 12 hole of quarterback. Just because by the time it comes back, he's potentially staring down, the Drake May, JJ McCarthy tier. Interesting, the three wide receivers start in this room. And that's kind of what I'm saying is like those guys seem fun and good. And I guess, but at that point, I personally would be kind of nervous about what's coming back around because I don't want to get locked out of competing in this pod and then competing once the playoff pods start. It's just a really interesting balancing act, and you kind of what I think is I find myself anxious until I'm comfortable with where the pockets are going, and that's kind of like once I'm well aware of like where the quarterback pockets are kind of settling and attacking which tiers I like. I just feel uneasy, but I keep coming back kind of what Gretch was saying. It's like, just treat the quarterbacks like you would running back, to an extent. And, as long as you cover your ass there, I think you can build out. They end up seeming kind of like uglier wide receiver rooms, but because you only have to start two, the depth doesn't it's not going to be as strong, but it doesn't need to be as strong. And I think one thing I did a lot last year was like just taking six. If I was going to kind of go wide receiver heavy, I was going to take like six strong ones. So I can't blame the guy just absolutely pissing right now. Four wide receiver starts, but guys that have put up 25 and 30-point games, and so he's definitely hoping that all four of those guys are starting in his wide receiver flex and super flex spots, and you just hope to get like a nice value pocket of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to hit on this question from FFG. Would you take Fields, Daniel Jones in this format ahead of guys like Carr or Levis? I wouldn't. I'm not changing
No.
massively, but if I'd started running back like the team out of the 8 hole, then I would be prioritizing ceiling.
Yeah.
I think guys like Tua and Jared Goff don't really do it for me. Like if he'd been able to pair Jaden Daniels, who went a bit early, or then maybe I'm looking at those guys. But yeah, there are some interesting bits to hit on, but we're a couple of picks away. Should we figure out another quarterback, or do you want to push this around a bit more?
I think there's a tier break here if he doesn't go now. Otherwise, yes, I think Kirk probably ends up going here when ADP adjusts. No reason, Stafford and Goff going. So I think
Yep.
Kirk kind of covers our ass, and then how do you want to go from here?
Uh,
Elite tight end, receiver.
Let's push elite tight end a little bit further. But what's at running back at the minute?
Etienne, Jacobs, Pacheco.
Nah, let's go back to wide receiver. Because yeah, I mean, I think we can possibly. There's going to be a couple of nice tight ends who come back around, but which of these wide receivers you're starring, are you pounding the table for, Tyler?
I mean, we chase the good offense, we chase the huge upside. We've got two right now, so ideally these guys are hitting huge ceilings. And then there's also potentially the Rams thing. I really don't have any strong leans here. It's probably Smith or Cup.
Yeah, it's Smith for me. Smith's for
Right.
slightly, I really like Cup to have another
Oh my
good
god.
year this
Cliff.
year, but I'm definitely down with that. We will be talking more about our exposures when we get to the end of this draft and checking in on what we kind of want to correct. So do stick around for that. We want to hear which of our exposures you think we're batshit mental for. As Sam Laporta goes off the board, you could just scroll up just a smidge for us, Tyler. So back at the start of this draft, Kyler Murray went as the QB6, CJ Stroud falling to QB7. I don't know whether that's going to be something we see more of in Superflex, that people are looking for the real high upside plays out of Kyler Murray, and then pairing Kyler Murray with Jaden Daniels slightly ahead of ADP feels
I
like a
love that
really,
pairing though.
yeah, I think there's so much fun to be had there. I talked about them in the Elite QB video that I put out on Saturday, talking about how, these guys who rush for 5 rush attempts per game on average just have so much leverage on the field and so much leverage on the pocket passes. And if I can find 2 dual threats in a draft, then I'm going to smash that every time. That's the kind of one thing that would force me to take a second quarterback
Yeah,
early.
yeah, and I think this kind of challenges folks like because over a full season, you're competing with everybody else's quarterbacks that are projected for 20 to 25 points. So how do you catch up when you don't get the elite, And I think there's a definitely tier break of you've got Allen, Hurts, Lamar, and AR. Any week they can go off for 30 to 45 points. That's just a fact. And then there's a mini tier break with Mahomes, who has shown a high floor and ceiling, but not to that extent over, a full season. And so as far as Kyler goes, yeah, I'm targeting him because if I'm taking a quarterback, I'm taking a quarterback that I think week in, week out, and season long can crack into that top three. And it's not Stroud, it's not Burrow, and so I'm definitely prioritizing guys like Kyler and Jaden that have that rushing upside to try to catch up with those guys. And in the pocket passer types of Goff of yesteryear, Kirk Cousins probably the better example this year as far as ADP and Superflex is considered. Those guys are more of like the steady Eddie that can fill in, and when they do hit, it's like a 35-point game on like touchdown upside, but that's more of a depth thing for me than it is an upside play. I do think I like that tier much better than the Rodgers thing from an offensive standpoint. But I think
Yeah.
it's a good way to reevaluate from in BBM. We're looking for like playoff week stuff, but the full season matters too as far as like getting your guys there and advancing, and it's a balancing act between those two things. And so it is interesting in these super flex rooms. It challenges, why are we taking some guys there? And it's like, yeah, Kyler should be going higher, and he's not quite there yet. And Stroud's probably a bit overpriced. Single game upside huge, but season long upside, it's questionable, right? So it's an interesting thing to kind of reevaluate some of the current ADPs and non-superflex.
Yeah, and we've got some teams who are really pushing quarterback. We've got the team out of the 9 spot and the 10 spot, both yet to take a single quarterback. Kind of got to go back to what you were saying. Like when it comes to contest selection, you are only starting 2 instead of 3 wide receivers. So it just feels like going 5 wide receivers in a row is a little overkill, perhaps in
Yeah,
this tournament. Can you just
I
scroll down a smidge for us, Tyler?
I think they're making a mistake here, especially missing out on running backs too. If they do this, the only viable way to do it is they get lucky that a guy or two comes back around and they're done at wide receiver. I think any more receivers than this, for a long time, it's a mistake.
And I thought Dalton Kincaid would make his way back to us there. It felt like he was gonna, so we do miss out on the top elite times. But should we pair Kyle Pitts with Kirk Cousins and then maybe grab another quarterback, or do you want to keep pushing this? I'm happy to keep pushing this.
You're happy to keep pushing it?
Yeah. I mean, Kyle Pitts feels like the right one, but what else is there? Like,
Well, so I will say there is the potential for like double elite tight end, and that buys us flexibility going forward. It was interesting that Gretsch pitched it. I did it in a draft earlier. It did kind of feel nice not to have to worry about tight end. You're kind of wrapping that up, especially with guys that could hit huge
and
ceilings. But I also
that's
don't
not
mind taking another, or maybe getting a running back here to anchor. I don't know. It's flexible. This is that weird environment. What do you think?
that's not going to screw us on bye weeks, is it?
No, I think it's what? It's
Yeah, it's
12
6.
and 12 and
Yeah,
9.
let's do it. It sounds fun. Um, Bindles, the legend that is, working
Welcome,
his way
welcome.
through the many streams, gifting out a Fantasy Sanctuary membership. Somebody grab that, get yourself into the Discord once you have hit the join button, and that is where you will find all our premium content, including my rankings, Rich's Dynasty rankings, all the Dynasty Survival kit from Rich, the rookie guide, which is almost 200 pages long, all my resources for your best ball content, and much more. We will help you win this year. So can you just recap our team for where we're at so far, Tyler?
Absolutely. So from the one hole, we've got Josh Allen and Kirk Cousins at quarterback. No running backs yet. At wide receiver, we have Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Smith, and at tight end, we have Kyle Pitts and George Kittle. I like how we've kind of attacked this so far with quality, upside, youthful guys, good offenses, up and coming offenses, good floors, really good ceilings, and especially from the tight end standpoint, getting a guy like Kittle who, on the weeks that he and Pitts both go off and are in our lineup, Kittle's probably filling in with a 30-point game. And if Pitts is having a game where he's popping in either the tight end or super flex, that's 20-point game. So it just frees up. Not having to clog up a onesie roster spot with 3-4 guys. I found that to be pretty hampering on my rosters last year when I was having to take like 4 dart throws.
So what I think is really great about it, and you were kind of alluding to it in some ways, but when you do this with the tight end position, now it means if we need to at the quarterback position, we can get to 4 quarterbacks. We can say, okay, well, we've got tight end sorted with 2. We've got 20 rounds in this, don't we? So of course we can push it a little bit further and get up to 4 QB. 4 QB is a build which has done well on FFPC, Superflex tournaments, 20 round drafts. You look back a couple of years ago and it was a 4 QB team that won it on DraftKings. So there's little ways where I can talk myself into taking 4 quarterbacks when normally there's no situation in hell where I'm going to be taking 4 QBs in a regular draft.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So
Let's see. The team's still pushing quarterback. Good. Go with God, brother.
So we've got Go Meet King, savvy drafter, playing out of a 10 spot, somebody who I know very well, and he is definitely comfortable being uncomfortable in this one. And I think it's definitely the puppies are worth trying the different things. If this was a higher price point, I'd struggle with it. And the FFPC contest where I've played a lot, they're $35 drafts, and there's always an element of me not wanting to dick around too much and just looking for things that work.
Yeah.
Their Goat Meat takes Aaron Rodgers and Geno Smith in round 7 and round 8. So if you can find a third quarterback to pair with them that feels fairly reliable in the next round or 2, I don't dislike that. But yeah, it's always that balancing act of spreading your resources
Oh
around.
yeah.
You mentioned before we got into the draft that depending on how many badges are in these drafts seems to vary what's going on in the room greatly. And we're sitting here with only 3 badgeless drafters, and
And they're all in the middle, which is the fun part. they're just
yeah.
getting sandwiched.
And is
Um,
Bobby with that tool? Is he still taking wide receivers for 8
yeah.
straight
See,
rounds
and
now?
this is where I mean, I made
Oh
the
no.
Bobby with
Okay.
that tool's catching up at wide
Okay.
receiver. I think it's
Good job.
fine.
Yeah.
I probably anchor with a running back at that point, just trusting that the 3 guys I've taken are doing me enough from like a tier break standpoint. Because again, 2 running backs, and I think whenever you have a super flex, I think running backs become a little bit more valued in this style of tournament. So yeah, I think your Chris Godwin arbitrage is pretty easy to make, considering like he has to crack the lineup in either the flex or the 2 wide receiver starting spot, and eh, if Godwin's doing that, I'm probably in the bottom quartile of this pod. I feel like, besides like a bye week fill in, but it's different strokes, different folks.
So where are we at of a quarterback position if we wanted to take one here, Tyler?
We're at the McCarthy, Young, Carr, Drake May tier.
It feels like things are gonna get pretty bad quite
I don't mind
quickly.
taking one here. Do you have a preference?
I mean, I'd look at probably Bryce Young or Drake May just because they're probably easier to stack at this point. But if you like JJ McCarthy, we can do that and figure something out.
No, I like May. Do you want to stack Coleman, or do you want to break the seal on running back?
No, let's go Coleman and push it because the area of running back rooms, which we normally live in, is going to be a couple more rounds away anyway, so we can make that work. Shout out to Kevin in the chat. Kev, we need to get you on one of these streams at some point.
Kevin, my man. Oh, I noticed he's got the laser eyes adjusted to his. Those are not laser eyes. That's like annihilation laser eyes. Who you at war with, brother?
We've got Make Code Great again saying some of his do not draft players. We'll circle back to them definitely
Spicy.
and talk about them when we get through with this draft. I hadn't really checked in on my exposures too much at all. I'm through about 40 drafts on DraftKings. And so today was the first day where I was like, okay, now's the right time to be looking into these things and figuring out who I want there, which ones I need to fix before we get too far in. Tyler, have you been paying much attention to your exposures this early in the drafting season?
I famously check in randomly and go, "Holy shit!" And then I go, well, I mean, I guess that's not that shocking. So famously, in the big board, I did not realize I had 43% Kareem Hunt and 35% Ezekiel Elliott until, I don't know, 2 weeks before before I maxed it. And I'm not mad about it, to be very honest. There could be worse zeros, quite frankly. And then so yeah, recently I had one player over 43% when I checked 2 weeks ago, before one of our streams, and went, "Oh, yeah, I have a really heavy stand there." And I feel good about it. I'm not mad about it at all. So it is
Please don't
something I'm
put it.
being cognizant of, just
Yeah.
because I think I'm at, like, almost 130 drafts post NFL draft. Um, but a good chunk of those are time boxed. Some of them are, me obviously just trying to play around with a few different things. I'm not too concerned about it in these smaller, um, like the puppies, the poodles, the hounds, time box stuff. I'm not really worried about that. And at this point in the year, unless I've gotten over my skis on like on a Kareem Hunt, a Deonta Foreman, guys who are I that's what I'm saying, and that's where I defended myself. Is just like that was a zero running back like build, and there's gonna be huge misses, whatever, but it was access to anything else. So at this point, it's more of like I'm checking in to see, have I accidentally faded someone I did not mean to fade, and that's really all I'm checking for. Other than that, I don't think it's that big of a deal because, and Pete's talked about this before, Kareem's talked about this before. They're going to be natural adjustments as ADP shifts, and guys I'm hammering now because I think the ADP just is too easy for it. Is different than I don't know, July and August, and I'll be way more cognizant of things like my exposures in BBM, where I think those things matter because it's such a unique summer long contest.
Yeah, absolutely. As Gomi takes his fourth quarterback
I like that
in
a
a
lot.
row, it's definitely fixing things. We've got
Nine
good. We're
hole is
down.
toast.
We're down to the Daniel Jones there, the Russell Wilson area. So I definitely feel good about the fact that we didn't push that third quarterback any further than we had already.
Totally
Um,
agree.
so we're a few spots away. What's standing out to you at the top of the list? I can imagine that there's at least one player who we bring up a little bit.
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah, I'm just I want to. The nine hole is totally fucked. By the way, they have no quarterbacks, and this is who they're staring down the list. Like they're toast. Do they?
Let's take
Was this the opposite where someone joined a superflex, didn't realize it was a superflex? Thinking running back here is prudent unless you want to do one. to anchor and add another receiver?
I'd be fine double tapping running back or adding a wide receiver for somebody who stands out before the tier break.
I don't mind either
Curtis
one of these
Samuel,
guys. At running back, who you know what? We probably
well, I
should
was going
double
to say
tap.
Curtis Samuel for the stack, but either of those wide receivers,
We'll stack it, and then running back. Who do we want?
nimble fingers. In terms of running backs, the one player I'm trying to force myself to draft a little bit more at the minute is Javonte Williams.
All right.
So we can get into that, but Singletary, Brian Robinson, usual suspects to be fine, but Javonte for me, like there are too many intelligent people in on Javonte Williams for me to feel like I can completely miss the boat on him. I've got reservations, and I think it's fair to have some reservations. But when we're talking about an 11th round player, I'm just kind of like, okay, particularly in a format like this where I think you can get away with a little bit more, I'm willing to just take that. And in this kind of build, if he lives up to his ADP, that can be a pretty decent discount.
That's fair. Uh, I I am probably too negative on Javante after talking with Gretch about it, but I'm having a hard time moving off of wanting to take him over guys I feel much better about in season long and weekly, especially in a tournament like this where for Superflex it really does feel like I mean I kind of almost approach it like weekly winners where I just want guys who can definitely hit huge ceilings week in and week out and have big seasons and come on strong in the finals when I need them to. And I just don't feel good about Javante doing that, but I get it. I could be wrong. I mean, the Jaleel could be just a guy, change of pace. Samaje could get cut. Javante could absorb that role. Estime could be bad. You know, I acknowledge all those things could just run good for Javante, and Javante could just be the most boring, get it there, do it right, a la Rashad White, and pay off his ADP. And
I th-
that's probably the reason to mix him in.
yeah, and I think there's definitely very realistic scenarios where Giovanni just never is as good as he was that initial year, and we just much like J.K. Dobbins, we just never see him recover because of the severity of the knee injury. But because of this system, I don't think it really matters as much because if he's catching as many passes and there's so many dump offs, like Russell Wilson led the league in dump off rate last year. I think like 15% of his passes were to running backs or something mad, and like the highest rate of passes behind the line of scrimmage across the league. So, yeah, I'm just kind of Javante as a player probably end up below 8% on. But if I can be at about 5%, I don't feel like I'm going to be missing out too much. We've got a question in the chat from one of our YouTube members, Historical Anomalies. Be like him, hit the join button down below. Would you consider cooking your QB in this Wilson, Fields, or Cousins, Penix, or at a lower point, May Brisket? I think if you've got two sketchy quarterbacks, then I'd be open to it. But
Yeah.
it's also more, I don't know, like I think I'd also be just open to saying, okay, I'm just going to mix and match them and hope that I get two of the four. And if I end up
Right.
getting three of the four,
Yeah,
then
you
it's
kinda gotta
great.
play them like running backs. Price matters. So, like, for May Brisket, potentially, Fields, Russ, where they're like, there's true ambiguity. I think the only room it makes sense in is the Pittsburgh guys because those are the two guys that are gonna start, and I think the value of hitting on a rushing quarterback in a efficient offense geared towards them, especially if it's Fields that wins, is value. And there's a world where they both hit and both help you because it's injury. So, like, Russ overperforms for a good chunk of the season, but he's 36 now, gets hurt, misses time, which has happened with his hand or lower body, and Fields comes in and Fields puts up a couple 30 and 40-point games, much like, a Miami running back in every draft. That ends up working out, and I think that's much more viable in this tournament. But and I kind of addressed this earlier. I did this last year quite a bit when I got because I just tried to push quarterback in every draft and just see if I could build a super team. And the worst performing thing was just handcuffing with guys who were not likely to move the needle if they were in at quarterback. And so you probably can't do that here. Tom, what are we feeling?
I would take your boy Zeke Elliott. I
I'm
don't
glad we're
mind
in
that.
agreement there. Yeah.
Or I mean, I'd also be happy to take Jerome Ford as well. I think he's kind of going a bit undervalued. I'm
¿Por
not
qué no
able.
los dos?
Yep.
Got to start two
uh,
guys.
yeah, I think it works well. Anybody else you want to bang the table for?
We could get spicy and just flip for Lloyd, but I mean, I'm not. I think there's a chance he comes back around. So either one,
Yeah,
who gets you hot and bothered more?
I'd lean Jerome Ford. I think fading Nick Chubb feels like something I'm just unhappy about, but kind of having to do it this year. Got Mate Carter saying Jaleel McLaughlin will be the touch leader in that backfield, also the most fantasy production, and betting that McLaughlin's spike weeks are better too. Love it, bit of conviction. And David, get it there, do it right. A la Rashad White is the track on Emo's Best Ball Summer album. Well, get us to 100 likes. Hit the like button down below, and maybe you'll hear it.
That's true. Hey, I'm quite musical. I don't mean to be so lyrical, but I am sometimes. It happens. And one of these days, we'll get the deep dive on why. But I got to keep some things mysterious. Let's see.
That sounds like an idea for a YouTube members only video.
Hey, exactly. There you go. Oh God, I've been selling Pete on this for forever. I'm like, you want an all access, ask me anything, you're gonna get every answer you want type of show that the people love. Just saying. Nothing's off limits. I don't care. Let's see. I mean, maybe, but he's still an undrafted free agent, so just something to be aware of.
Yeah, there's a long way to go there. I think that would be a lot easier if we were talking about like the Chargers backfield, but there's still a lot of bodies in Denver. So after ignoring the wide of the running back position, we've definitely got an interesting mix with Javonte Williams, Ezekiel Elliott, and Jerome Ford. How are you feeling about our team at the minute?
I mean, I think we're just building, a zero running back room, and we've correctly targeted guys that could have big, high value touch roles. Each of these guys mixed in via both the passing and the running. And the big thing with Zeke is he's probably going to be way more efficient in the red zone than Pollard was. And Pollard was stone worst in the red zone outside of AJ Dillon last year. So, I mean, and between Rico and Zeke figures to be the guy trusted, and the beats have kind of said this as well. Like they're going to rotate backs and involve them, but they did not give Rico that many red zone touches, and they love and trust Zeke to be the third down guy in most situations for pass blocking, and he's got the size and still the efficiency relative to some other guys in the league and previous to Pollard in the red zone. So I think that's a huge benefit for him. And that's all we want, right? We just need him to bowl forward for a couple of touchdowns every once in a while, or get a dump off. And in a zero running back room, you'll take that. Even if he only gives us like 2 or 3 games where he gives us, 18 to 20 points, that's valuable in a zero running back room. And his price has never been more palatable. So I'm going to have a good amount of him because I'm not that big of a believer in Rico. And some of the beat also think that they're not done adding to the room quite yet. And if that's the case, I don't think Zeke is losing that work unless he's just injured. And he's been relatively healthy. So he's like a cockroach, won't go away.
Yeah. 5 tight ends go off the board since our last pick, which is music to our ears with George Kittle and Kyle Pitts. We can either go running back or wide receiver here, or if there's a backup quarterback, I mean, that feels like a round 18 onwards kind of thing.
Yeah,
to me.
this is a no-go.
Taysom Hill's mildly interesting, but not worth it just as a quarterback designation. For me, the guys in this room, I mean, Darnell Mooney give us a bit of Atlanta stacking. I don't mind him, or we could take Jalen Polk for the New England stack. I'd go with either of those two. Tyler, you made a pick, and then we'll figure out the second one.
I definitely would rather I think in Polk's upside, it's just way more than Mooney. I should have let the clock bleed down and buy us a few more seconds. I think running back here makes sense.
Yep.
So I don't have I have strong takes, but I'm willing to mix it up for either stacking purposes or upside.
Let's go Ty Chandler. We've been strong on Ty Chandler in all of our drafts. We've been liking him just because it's Superflex. No reason to move away from it now, and we'd feel stupid if we didn't get the Ty Chandler pick in, and that was what we needed.
Yeah, in a zero running back room, we want standalone value, and we want contingent upside, and he offers both in a pretty good offense. So
Yeah.
hard to say
If
no.
if somehow you're watching this and you haven't signed up to Underdog and you made it 40 minutes into this stream before thinking you should do so, use the code Sanctuary for up to a $250 bonus cash and a special pick when you sign up for Underdog. That's equivalent to 53 entries in this puppy. What else are you going to do with your time? That sounds like a marvelous way to spend the next couple of days. How fast do you reckon this fills, Tyler?
I mean, how many entries is it? Let's see. Before I answer that
It
question,
was a fairly big one.
67,000. Probably. What is it? Monday.
10 days.
It's probably like a week and a half max. It's probably like it's 7 days. These tend to fill kind of spicy fast. Although the last few super flexes, people really want them. And if they're like me, and I kind of hear this a lot, they kind of get sick and tired of them after like 20 or 30 drafts. So like it feels quick and then it just kind of plateaus because it isn't quite, and I don't know, for whatever reason, it's just not quite as fun year over year after you do them. I think simply just because it's hard to get a rhythm. And when it's hard to get a rhythm, it's not as enjoyable to kind of like, I don't know. I think of it kind of like surfing or skateboarding. If you can hit that rhythm, hit that groove, it feels real good. And if not, it kind of just feels out of whack and out of sync. And we got to check in on this guy. I don't think he's
It's
still taking a
insane.
quarterback. I,
Yeah.
I guess he thinks he can somehow survive.
So can you
Which
just, for the audio listeners, tell us what
yeah,
we've got?
let's pull this guy up. Let's see.
And we are on all major fantasy podcasts, all major podcast platforms. Most of our drafts go on there. Be sure to hit the like and subscribes on there.
So from the 9 hole, we have a quarterbacks don't matter truther and can't miss Quinn with a Q. And this is all respect, by the way. Like you're throwing your nuts on the table and saying that you're better and you're smarter, and I respect it. Started CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, Mike Evans, Zay Flowers, hit him with the Trey McBride, then hit him with the Ken Walker, then hit him with the Jordan Addison, rounding out with Ramondre, DeAndre Swift, Jamison Williams, Mike Williams, Jerry Jeudy, TJ No ACL Hawkinson, Darnell Mooney, and Dustball Adam Thielen, because that's what this team was really feeling.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could talk myself into drafting Adam Thielen over Taysom Hill. Like,
Imagine
yeah.
passing on Taysom Hill when you haven't gotten anybody in that room.
Yeah, that's how many wide receivers is it up to now? It's at least 9, isn't it?
Yeah, let's see. 11. A 0-3-11-2 build for Can't Miss Quinn.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah. You know what? What if Taysom Hill wins this starting quarterback job?
Yeah, I mean, or just starting running back.
Dude, I have never seen it's been a long time since I've seen something that philosophically strong in a draft. So you know what? Power to you. Dude, I just kind of want to take Taysom just for the bit, but
I'd be almost tempted. So what have we got here?
Probably another double tap running back, or maybe we mix in a little bit of receiver. What are you feeling?
Yeah, Khalil Herbert works for me for the first one, and then wide receiver. Let's take a look what's there. I mean, Javon Baker makes some sense. I'd probably either him or Demario Douglas. I like Demarcus Robinson, Jalen Tolbert, somebody I can't stop drafting. Yeah, I think I'd possibly lean to wide receiver here, unless you feel strongly we should be getting another running back.
No, let's double tap the rookies, and if they crack the lineup, it's because they blew up. And we're playing. This is also week 17 still matters in this contest. So, if we took Drake May, he's cracking the lineup because he's cracking heads on the field, and Javon Baker's making noise on the field in OTAs. And while that is quite a bit useless in the macro, it's not nothing that he's wowing coaches, because this is kind of a dinosaur donkey organization. And if he wasn't making any noise whenever just Juju Smith Poopster is on the field, that would be concerning. So we will take it.
If Juju turns out to be even remotely good this year, it's gonna be very difficult.
Thank you for giving me another content moment. I'm gonna look the camera dead in the fucking eyes and say that if Juju is anything worthwhile, I will. What will I do? I don't know. I was gonna say eat something stupid, but I've already said I was gonna do that with Chiga Conquo. Give me an idea. What's something god awful? Yeah, I will drink wine out of a shoe if Juju. There we go. We made it rhyme. If Juju do anything, I will drink wine out of a shoe. There we go.
Maybe just draft 11 wide receivers in a Superflex draft without any quarterbacks.
I'm not a psychopath. I'm not gonna do that. I am shocked that you think Joel was the pick there. If we made a bet on Javante, we have to handcuck it with the guy who may, get kind of edged out by Estime or Watson.
Yeah, I could understand making that move if Javante wasn't our RB1, if you'd gone with a hero RB build, but yeah, I can't do that. I've got to believe in our takes.
Quit David, who are you, my wife?
Yeah.
What am I going to do with all my free time?
Yeah.
You know what? No, I'll quit fantasy if I win the millie. Like then I'm done. I'm good. I've accomplished what I could accomplish. I'm done.
Yeah, the real test will be whether you tell any of your friends or family.
What's worse, buying a Juju jersey? That's hard to say. I have a speech impediment. That's mean. Or drinking. I still think I'd drink wine out of a shoe. I don't want to. I could get a good deal, but then I'd have to wear it. What's worse? You know what? I'll capitulate. Chat, tell me what's worse: buying a Juju jersey or drinking wine out of a shoe on stream. Whatever you decide, I'll do that. And what are the stipulations? I'll say he finishes in the top 60 wide receivers or gives you more than 15 half PPR points in a single week. There you go. I gave you 2 outs. That's how strongly I feel that Juju Smith Duster is dust. There you go. They're saying they'll quit with me. All good. This is why we're here. And Meatwad reminding us that he has decided quarterback will not be taken on this team. He's at 12 wide receivers. Oh, God.
Keep going, Tyler. I'm just going to throw this up in the chat as a poll. Wine Chewy.
There we go. Yeah, we got to you know what, guys? I like to have fun. We like to have fun. We're going to keep it rock and rolling all. This is why you tune in live, by the way. Come back every week Monday, and then every Tuesday and Wednesday when Tom is doing DraftKings. And then every once in a while, I want to do a weekend stream like I did yesterday for Best Ball Brunch Marathon. Because you have no idea what I'm going to decide in the moment. Sounds like a great content idea that I should not have agreed to on these very legal terms between you and I through this screen. Because I'll do it because I don't have much self-respect that way, I guess. I don't know. I have self-respect, just not much dignity. All right, let's see. We are at a 3-5-7-2 build. We're done at quarterback, done at tight end, I think. So at this point, I'll just check in. Kind of want to take Taysom for the bet, but
I'd be down to take Taysom just for the,
Would you like that, chat? Would you like a little Taysom? Running back or wide receiver here? What are you thinking?
What's at wide receiver? Sorry, I missed that one.
We're at 7 wide receivers. I don't know if we need to take any more. I kind of am comfortable pushing it. I think we'd probably go running back here.
Let's take your boy CAH. What's the
well?
worst?
I'm an amiable man, so I mean, if we like any of these other dust balls, I don't. Well, we'll go with the meh. Maybe the other guys will come back around.
How confident are you in CAH being the clear RB2 in Kansas when the season rolls around?
I mean, pretty damn good. They usually like even at this point in the season last year, they brought back McKinnon, and they haven't done that, and they didn't really address it in the draft, and they just signed undrafted free agents. So it surely seems like they're kind of just punting on running back, like Dallas did, except they have a young, capable person in tow already. So it and his fill in last year, he scored like what 20 something points. So this is really just if he gives us a single week at running back or flex in this build, that's fine. I mean, handcuffs are handcuffs, and there's just not that many clear handcuffs. I think he's much clearer than like a Deonta Foreman. We are getting news that the Jets are leaning towards Braylon Allen as the backup, but even that could change in the next 3 months with
That's the
injury
one I was
or
gonna pick up. Yeah, like,
yeah.
Braylon Allen going ahead. Elijah Mitchell potentially could lose his backup role. Tyrone Tracy is very slim. Roshan Johnson, if Khalil Herbert stays there, what's happening? So I'm definitely in agreement that sometimes you just play the current situation if you need to. It might be that something changes between then and now. But if it doesn't, then we could definitely be looking at this and going, yeah, we need that. We are sitting currently with Buy a Juju jersey at 71% of a poll and Wine Chewy at 29%. So we'll
Wow,
leave that up.
I'm shocked, honestly. But that's kind of what I felt like. I was like, I think I'd rather drink wine out of
so we got. Go on.
No, I'm just no. Go ahead. I'm just trying to follow the logic here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, in case you missed it earlier, we've got a lot of great guests coming up in the next few weeks. We will have a couple of guests on this channel over the next few weeks, but also for the DraftKings drafts, got Justin Herzig, John Daigle, Chris Allen, Ian Hartitz, and more coming on. Now is the time. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and go and check out the quarterback video that I put out on Saturday when we finish this video. A lot of good stuff in there about the difference between dual threats and pocket passes and what it takes for pocket passes to kind of compete with dual threats. I do feel like in Superflex you can sometimes get away with it, but I still want one dual threat as often as possible.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and see, like, to touch on the backup running back thing, I think that's a spot you definitely want to hammer with the extra 2 rounds in these drafts if you can. So if you've punted running back a little bit, I think that's very prudent. And even there, like Keaton Mitchell, ACL recovery, going to be out at least half the season. And does he have a role behind Justice Hill, Rasheen Ali, Derrick Henry? We don't know. Isaac Guerrero, same thing. Like, I don't know. Tank Bigsby's the presumed backup right now, but he got relegated for who is it?
Dearness Johnson.
Dearness Johnson, yeah. So, and then right now in Indy, Evan Hull versus Tyler Goodson or whoever, TBD. Eric Gray is potentially the leading guy right now in early camp ahead of Tyron Tracy. But again, like it's TBD. So I think the places where the talent gap, and I think we can say that as bad as CEH is, he's probably better than undrafted free agents and a rugby player. No offense to across the pond. So I think you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, no offense taken. Rugby's not a proper sport, not one which.
Oh, he takes his first and only quarterback.
So Jared Stidham, Michael Penix going off the board late. It's reached that point right in the Cordarrelle Patterson area of the draft. Tyler, the bad news is you'll be buying a Juju jersey. That was 75% winner in the poll.
I won't be buying it, but that is what those are the terms.
Yeah.
I think we take another running back here. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'd be fine with another running back. We've got what, a 3.682. That
3.672, but I think
3.672. Who are top wide receivers again? Just run us by them.
We got Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Devonta Smith, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Jalen Polk, and Javon Baker. So mostly stacks with mostly rookies. You could talk me into taking another receiver. I just don't know if there's anybody here with like versus a running back.
I'm fine. Running back. Well, I see you sneaky Josh Reynolds pick. Yeah, unless there's anybody you want to scroll the F down for and see whether there's any value in that at this point in the draft. Are we on the clock there, or no? We're one.
We got 6 more seconds before we're on the clock, so we got plenty of time. Just
don't do it. So yeah, a running back. I'd be fine with Alexander Mattison. I think the market's probably gone a little too far on him. Which of these guys do you feel strongest about, Tyler?
You know what? I think maybe receiver here is the prudent move.
Just go, Josh.
It's tough. This room is. You know what? No, I think backup running back. We just sit with it. I'm just gonna let it do it. My mic is just blocking the draft button. That's what are you gonna do?
It's why it's always plus EV
You know
to
what?
be in these drafts with the streamers. But can you recap it for its style? I really like his team.
You know what? Yeah, I think this worked out well. So out of the one hole, we went Josh Allen, Kirk Cousins, Drake May, and the GOAT Taysom Hill. Uh, which I mean, where we got him at 216, I don't mind that at all, honestly, because
Yep.
if he rushes for what 30 yards and 2 touchdowns, he could fit in the flex, the super flex. So I kind of dig that. At running back, I think we did right with Javonte Williams, Zeke Elliott, Jerome Ford, Ty Chandler, Khalil Herbert, CEH, and Alexander Madison. Just taking shots on standalone value and contingent value. And if any of those guys pops, it's providing a big boost. With our wide receiver room going early with Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Smith, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Jalen Polk, Jim Vaughn, Baker. Really like how we kind of got those stacks. Naked Kirk. What if that's the guy you need? And then we went double elite tight end at Kyle Pitts and George Kittle, which I think worked out really well. This might be something I do a lot in these super flex drafts, just to provide allocation, knowing I want to go a little bit heavier on quarterback.
Nice. In terms of what we're going to get to, we said we were going to talk about our exposures. So let's jump over to that now. We covered that draft and the kind of craziness and the good stuff within it.
Stay tuned as I expose myself online.
Tyler, do you want to go first or do you want me to jump in?
I've already got it pulled up, so I mean, might as well. All right, I'm finding out what my exposures are for the first time in 3 weeks too. So you're seeing this live with me, guys. Do we want to do position by position, or we just kind of gawk at the top 20?
Just go with just scroll through them because I'm gonna pull up mine slightly different to that.
So
Anyways.
for the audio listeners, I've got just under 37% Hunter Henry and Brian Robinson Jr., Marshawn Lloyd, Ty Chandler, Juwan Johnson, Lad McConkey, Rashid Shaheed, and those are all the guys I have at 30% or more. And then right below 30%, Bucky Irving, Brian Thomas, Jonathan Brooks, Trey McBride, CEH. Thought he'd be higher. Kind of happy about that. Devontae Wicks at 24.5% with Bo Nix. So only one quarterback above 24% for me in Bo. And you can definitely know that that's a backdoor Bo through 33 teams so far. So I'm doing a lot of zero RB, a lot of hero RB, punting tight end, far. That's where the Henry and Juwan Johnson, because right now I'd like to punt it a little bit later, but we have some ambiguity and uncertainty about the Rams backup, or the Rams starter and backup setup, as well as, who's the actual tight end in LA for the Chargers. Will they matter? What's the Cincinnati room going to, work out to be? So I'm just going after the guys that profile to be likeliest contributors or full-time role players in an offense that could improve. And, because if I'm taking elite tight end, I probably want to be done with two, and I'd like to not lose the power and leverage of an elite tight end because I totally punted off with some donk for the second tight end. And that's one thing I've learned the last few years is try to have a serviceable second tight end. It doesn't not matter just because you took an elite guy. Because you want a little bit of leverage versus the other teams that have those elite guys, or if the elite guy misses some time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'm definitely building a little, not necessarily cautious with my tight ends. I'm much more open to looking at 3 tight end builds, even if I have gone tight end early, particularly on DraftKings where you've got those extra roster spots. So in terms of mine, let me change over and go. So hopefully this shows up all right. So this is the Spike Week grid, which they've got all your exposures, which I kind of really like. So let me throw us over to the side so we're not covering as much. So for me, this is the first time I checked in. I'm through about 40 drafts on DraftKings because I live in a poor area of the world where I don't have as much access to as many fun drafts. But yeah, in terms of the players that stood out to me, 21% Drake London is the first player who is really an aggressive stance. I've been heavy on Drake London ever since Kirk Cousins signed that deal, and I'll fully expect to be sitting around this and being one of my most balls to the wall exposures for this year. I think 20% kind of feels fine. I'm a little bit wary about ending up in like the 25 area because, one injury suddenly ruins an awful lot of teams. Going down, I mean, the Ravens stuff, I'm sitting at 25% Lamar Jackson, 29% Zay Flowers, 26% Mark Andrews. So these aren't massively surprising. If you've watched many of these streams, even when I've tried to be a bit more balanced about my Ravens, we've ended up on them a lot of the times. Guys who I haven't taken much or any of so far, Devon Achan early. I do need to take more Devon Achan, and I think that's something which I will start to correct. I don't want to be completely out on Dalton Kincaid. Again, I worry about the Dawson Knox role of him still being there and what it's really going to like. But Dalton Kincaid, I'll probably end up at a 5% range. I thought I'd taken him in a couple of drafts. Marquise Brown kind of surprised me a bit because I thought I would have had a sprinkling of him because I'm definitely not out on him. I just think I prefer the Xavier Worthy pick in that range. I'm going to go with
I
one
also
of the...
have 0% Marquise Brown right now. So that tells you this is not a Hollywood heavy corner of the stream streets.
Travis Etienne, 0%. I mean, I've been fading Travis Etienne for a few years, and it always feels like you lose, but everybody who drafts Travis Etienne, as well as everybody who fades Travis Etienne, gets to boast about it and say they were right. Jake Ferguson at 0%. That's one which I want to correct. I mean, he led all tight ends with 24 red zone targets last year. I do want more of him. I think in general, I've just been quite light on the Cowboys. I haven't had many of the early picks. So when I have had CD Lamb, I've ended up stacking him with Dak. But it also, Jake Ferguson goes on the opposite side of the board sometimes. So now maybe I just need to prioritize that more. Nick Chubb, 0%. Zach Moss, 0%. DeAndre Swift, 0%. Xavier Legette, 0%. Maybe that's one who I need to get more. And
I
sorry to
also don't
call.
have a Leggett, and I said that on Bindle stream in the chat earlier today. But I noted that, I think that's just because of the pocket of the draft. I just like the guys running back and receiver that go around him a lot more. I just wish he was cheaper.
Yeah, so I mean, you can kind of see it. You've got Malik Neighbors at 20%, Zay Flowers 29%. Like, those are the guys who I'm being a bit more aggressive on. And then I go apologize to Card in the chat, but 0% Jaleel McLaughlin. But maybe I'll start correcting that now. In terms of people in the chat, Cod did say he's not drafting Jermaine Jazz, Michael Pittman, Jaden Reed, Derrick Henry, Blake Corum. Jermaine Justin Jefferson one is probably the one which feels like the scariest there. I get it. I think, he ran very pure last year, but I don't know what's your kind of feelings on fading first round players in general, Tyler? Because for me, I just don't really feel the need to fade anyone there. Like last year, I faded CMC because I felt like the wide receivers at the top were a big enough leverage that it was worth it, and it ended up stinging me quite badly. Fading Derrick Henry always was famously bad idea.
Until it wasn't in the playoffs. But yes.
Yeah. Is there anyone like in the first round that you could see yourself fading below 5% this year?
I mean, before I answer this question, I will check myself. Holy shit. Okay, well, so to answer your question, I have 0% Jamar Chase right now through 133 drafts. Because I cannot get on board with his price right now. Because so to answer your first question, I think it is risky to fade first round players because of draft capital and because injuries and because access to things. I think if you're going to make ideological stands on a single slate, go with God, understand that opens yourself up to more risk. That all being said, I think there are some prices that I know. And so here's my thing with Jamar Chase. When T. Higgins is in the lineup the last 2 years, his points per game are capped in what people are afraid of the Nico Collins with Tank Dell and Steph Diggs ranges, and he's going at the 2-3 turn. They drafted a guy who profiles to be way better than Tyler Boyd has been the last 2 years. And I will caveat with saying that they've been consistent about wanting to get Jamar Chase more in the slot more often, which I think helps his floor. But there is just concern with like if they're gonna keep T all year long, which seemingly they will, and then they'll boot him to the curb next year. You have Chase, you have Higgins, you have Burton. And then in the world where they all stay healthy, Chase is only hitting those 35, 40-point games when T. Higgins plays less than, 50% of the snaps. But Burton could
Well,
be just as good
I've,
as Higgins. So it's like, go ahead.
I think there's Jacob Gibbs put out a really good thread over the weekend on Twitter. Jacob Gibbs from CBS Sport, and talked about some on-off splits. And he was looking at the Jamar Chase stuff from the point of view of when Tyler Boyd's been off the field. When Tyler Boyd's been off the field the past 2 seasons, Chase's targets per route run rate rose from 24% to 27%. He also played more in the slot when Boyd isn't on the field, obviously. And so I think I'm not disagreeing with you. I think, yeah, there's definitely a world where the other flip side of it comes true where it's like, okay, well, the rookie wide receiver isn't ready to play. Jamar Chase ends up being in the slot and getting a bunch of volume there.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I,
well,
I I acknowledge that, and that's where I was shocked that I had 0%, guys. And again, part of this is early pricing. I don't think he should be clearly above some of his compatriots. And I'm also trying to get a lot of Bijan and Brees, who are some of the only running backs that I think have access to that legendary running back upside. And in those environments, if Brees or Bijan are doing, CMC things, I'm likely not getting burnt there. But I understand that my chase fade isn't simply saying Justin Jefferson or Amon Ra or Puka are like straight up better. I'm simply saying at the 4 pick, I'm mixing in like 3 dudes and I'm taking Chase whenever he's falling past those guys, or I've just decided to change it up. And I just didn't think, to be honest, I'm a little shocked at that because I could have sworn I've taken some Chase, but I now realize that was all like big board stuff. But yeah, so I do acknowledge that he could just crush in the slot like he usually does. But I also acknowledge that he has a more injury riddled background than we're cognizant of. He had a hip issue, he's had some shoulder issues. Those things have plagued him. T. Higgins has also struggled with those things. And yeah, Burton could just be a flop. And so I'm ready to adjust. If we get some negative camp news on Burton and T is being his normal self, inconsistent, whatever, I'm going to adjust quickly and start mixing in more. Because I think yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I could have sworn I've drafted him once since the NFL draft, but it's just, I've been hard getting on the price. And with the FUD of Bijan and Brees, I'm loading up on those guys that have just legendary upside. But even I'm acknowledging I want to mix in some Chase going forward. And when I do that, I will be mixing him in over T, who I want to be under and fading for Burton. But I've at least made my bet that what right now sitting at no Chase, I do have. It's probably over. Yeah, I've got 14% Jermaine Burton. So, like the puzzle pieces are fitting, and there is a scenario where Chase gets outproduced in a playoff week or the final week by Jermaine Burton. I will just caveat he does look like a rookie that could start fast and go really well, who was projected to go in the second round, if not for off the field concerns. So that's kind of just my early take on it and just building through that. But I want to be a little bit more balanced in the first round going forward because chaos over a season happens. And even if that take is completely spot on right, there's a very easy way that Jamar just runs, 40% of his routes from the slot all season long and in the playoffs just kind of crushes in all those environments. For example, to give you like a game take, playing the Broncos, Patrick Surtain could cover up T or Burton outside, chasing the slot, gets 2 easy slot touchdowns, and he's just cruising and crushing. And I realize that, and I'm saying that so that I remind myself to take him every once in a while. And that's what I plan to do because I plan to have well over 500 drafts on Underdog. So with that being said, 0% is going to end up much closer to 8 to 10, I'm sure. I'm just trying to leverage the legendary running back upside as I build hero anchor RB builds through a lot of these drafts. And that's just where I'm ending up with my exposures right now.
love it. And I think, you made a very good argument for it. So, We'll come back to it. We'll revisit this in a month maybe and see where we're at.
Promise I'll have more than 0.
We're gonna get out of here on that, but Historical Anomaly says check out the Best Ball Survival Kit and Rookie Guide in Fantasy Sanctuary Discord now that you remember. If you want to be like Meatwad, hit the join button down below. From less than $1 a month, you'll get access to the Discord. For less than the price of a burger, you'll get access to so much content on there, including a 40% discount on all Spike Week tools. We will be back next Monday. We will be here on Wednesday with who's here on Wednesday? Andrew Erickson of FantasyPros drafting with me on DraftKings. We have lots of new content coming your way. Appreciate each and every one of you hanging out in the chat and drafting with us tonight. We'll see you soon.